What you just heard was the sound of a revolution. The anthem called 17 មេសាជោគជ័យ or in English, Glorious 17th of April, was created by an ambitious, rising regime to unite a nation under a radical new identity. 2025 marks 50 years since the regime aimed to reset Cambodia to zero. On 17 April 1975, the entire nation, its minds, its memories, and diversity was being prepared to be erased and rewritten under one massive plan. A plan built on a vision of a perfect new society, one they claimed would be shaped by democracy, equality, and justice. The anthem praised 17 April as the day Cambodia would rise again. It promised a better land and people. But history took a different turn. The same day that was called glorious in their anthem marked as the beginning one of the 21st century's most cruel and devastating human disasters. A revolution that promised rebirth, but instead left death in its wake, claiming around 2 million's life. A revolution that shattered families, destroyed culture, and left behind a legacy of trauma that continues to shape the way Cambodians live, think, and remember to this day. This is Graham Podcast, a documentary storytelling journey where Cambodian Gen Z return to the Khmer Rouge regime through lived stories, honoring resilience and passing memory forward. And this season, we retrace the Khmer Rouge common purpose, the so-called Great Leap Forward, to understand how it was designed, how it unfolded, and why it still matters today. I am Simchan Chariya, your host for this season. Let me start by quickly explaining our podcast name, since it contains a relevant historical connection. Krohom means red in Khmer, Cambodia's native language, and it's closely tied to the ideology that drove the regime, the Khmer Rouge. The term Khmer Rouge translates to Red Khmer and was coined by Prince Norodom Sihanouk in the late 1950s to describe Cambodians who were attracted to communist politics. The regime committed themselves to a radical form of communism that was trying to build a society from scratch. Cambodians were told they were stepping into the future without exploitation or corruption, a future without class divisions. In reality, that ideology became a tool of absolute control, and it all began with one central vision. What the regime called it, Great Leap Forward, towards a new society. Before we continue, we would like to make a brief note for our listeners. These episodes explore one of the darkest periods in Cambodia history, which some people may find it emotionally challenging. Please take care and only listen when you feel ready. As we move forward with today's episode, we want to leave you with a guiding question that shaped the creation of the following content. How can we make sense of a revolution that was intended to build a nation, yet ended up destroying it?
On the morning of April 17, 1975, Khmer Rouge forces entered Cambodia's capital, Phnom Penh. Not long after, the city became silent. Families were ordered out of their homes. Hospitals were emptied. Streets that had once been full of life became pathways of forced departure. It was the moment the Khmer Republic collapsed and the Khmer Rouge took its place, a regime that would later formalize itself as Democratic Kampuchea in January 1976. This marked the beginning of a radical national transformation. But to understand how this transformation unfolded, it's necessary to look further back. As early as the late 1950s, Cambodia's communist movement was already taking shape. In the 1960s, this movement consolidated into what became known as the Communist Party of Kampuchea, or the CPK. During these years, its leaders were drafting ideological documents that would later guide the revolution. The Extraordinary Chambers in the Courts of Cambodia, or the ECCC, was established under Cambodian law to bring to trial senior leaders of Democratic Kampuchea and those most responsible for serious crimes committed during the Khmer Rouge period, from April 17, 1975 to January 6, 1979. In its findings, this tribunal found that the Khmer Rouge leadership pursued a socialist revolution through what they called a great leap forward. It is an uncompromising vision to build the country, defend it from enemies, and radically transform Cambodian society. A coordinated set of policies designed to remake Cambodia into an atheistic and homogeneous Khmer society of worker peasants. Their leadership believed Cambodia had to be stripped of religion, private property, class distinction, and ethnic diversity. Anyone connected to the former system, or simply perceived as different, was treated as a threat. As the court established after years of investigation and trial proceedings, this common purpose linked actions that once appeared random into a single nationwide strategy. Implemented after 1975, these policies resulted in crimes that the court recognized as crimes against humanity and, in some cases, genocide. So what was the Khmer Rouge leadership's common purpose? The Khmer Rouge leaders implemented their common purpose through 5 core policies that shaped every aspect of daily life: movement of populations, cooperatives and work sites, targeting perceived enemies, security centers, and the regulation of marriage. But this vision did not stay on paper. By April 17, 1975, the CPK leadership put its common purpose into action. What you will now hear are the judge's words summarizing the crimes in one of the cases brought by the ECCC against senior leaders, as announced on Pronouncement Day in November 2018.
On the morning of 17 April 1975, CPK forces entered Phnom Penh under the banner of the Cambodian People's National Liberation Armed Forces and began to direct the population to leave Phnom Penh immediately, marking the start of the Democratic Kampuchea era.
The first policy unfolded immediately. Millions of people were forced out of Phnom Penh and other urban centers, ordered to walk into the countryside with no clear destination. Countless did not survive the forced evacuations. Witnesses described bodies left along the roadside, people who collapsed from exhaustion, starvation, or illness. There was no freedom to rest. Any pause came only under orders. To stop on one's own was to risk punishment. To turn back was impossible. Once survivors reached the countryside, they soon learned the truth. Life as they knew it had disappeared, as the Khmer Rouge leadership advanced the next phase of its common purpose.
The chamber finds that during the democratic Cambodia period there existed a policy to establish and operate cooperatives and work sites viewed as the primary instrument for waging class struggle and intended to create a labor and production force of strictly controlled people.
Under the Khmer Rouge leadership's common purpose, the population was reorganized into cooperatives and work sites. Families were separated to prevent resistance. People, labeled as new people, were assigned to unfamiliar villages and placed under constant surveillance. Privacy disappeared. Personal belongings were forbidden. Everything belonged to the regime, which referred to itself as Ankar. The court found that these cooperatives and work sites served economic and ideological goals central to the common purpose. The leadership believed Cambodia could rapidly increase its production and sustain itself without imports. Massive construction projects, dams, canals, and agricultural work sites were established across the country. People were forced to labor up to 16 hours a day under brutal conditions. Many died in accidents, others from starvation, disease, or simply exhaustion. But the work sites did not only claim lives. They broke bodies, they drained spirits, and left scars survivors still carry today.
The chamber finds that there existed a nationwide policy to regulate family building and marriage, which was implemented by party cadres at all administrative and military levels. The CPK designed this policy, replacing the role of parents in the selection of a suitable spouse, forcing couples to marry, and forcing the production of children for the purpose of increasing the country's population within 10 to 15 years.
As you could just hear in the judge's words, once movement and labor were controlled, the Khmer Rouge leadership turned to something even more intimate: marriage. From then on, romantic relationships were forbidden. Choosing one's own partner became a crime. Soldier officials selected men and women, often strangers, and ordered them to marry in mass ceremonies. No monks, no parents, no consent, just orders. Refusing or hesitating could result in punishment or even death. Couples were pressured to consummate their marriages immediately, sometimes under surveillance. The court found that regulating marriage was a deliberate policy of the Khmer Rouge leadership's common purpose, designed to break down family structures, enforce loyalty to Ankar, and increase the population to support the regime's economic and military goals. Survivors later described this as one of the most silencing and traumatic policies of the era.
The chamber finds that during the democratic Cambodia period there existed a policy to target the following groups in order to establish an atheistic and homogeneous society without class divisions by abolishing all ethnic, national, religious, racial, class, and cultural differences. Cham, Vietnamese, Buddhist, and former Khmer Republic officials, including civil servants and military personnel and their families.
As the judge's words make clear, the Khmer Rouge did not target people at random. This fourth policy was deeply rooted in the regime's ideological goal of creating a society without religion, ethnic diversity, or class divisions. To achieve this, entire groups were labeled as enemies of the revolution. In addition to the groups mentioned by the judge, the regime also targeted the Khmer Krom people, intellectuals, individuals who had lived abroad, and those suspected of having capitalist or foreign influences. Simply belonging to one of these groups was enough to mark someone for persecution. The purpose of this policy was to create fear so deep that people hid their thoughts, their education, even their identities. Survival meant silence. Suspicion alone could make someone disappear.
ក្នុងរបបកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យមានគោលនយោបាយបង្កើតនិងដំណើរការមន្ទីរសន្តិសុខ
The chamber finds that during the Democratic Cambodia period, there existed a policy to establish and operate security centers and execution sites to identify, arrest, isolate, and smash those considered the most serious types of enemies.
The final and most violent policy of the Common Purpose was enforced through security centers. More than 200 security centers were established across Cambodia to detain, interrogate, torture, and eliminate perceived enemies. The most well-documented was S21, now the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. Detainees were tortured and forced to confess. The court found that these confessions were forced and used to justify execution. Most detainees did not survive. After interrogation, many were taken to execution sites, later known as the killing fields. Others died slowly from starvation, disease, or torture. The Supreme Court chamber later described this period as a reign of terror, where logic and justice no longer existed. Yet, despite these conditions, some survived. Their resilience lies at the heart of this podcast. In the episodes that follow, each story focuses on a survivor whose experience reveals a different dimension of the Khmer Rouge leadership's common purpose. By sharing these stories, we honor survival, preserve memory, and deepen our understanding of how this plan shaped and scarred Cambodia.
This was the first episode of the Kraham podcast. We hope it gave you something to think about and spark your curiosity. Over the next 11 episodes, we will uncover all stages of the Great Leap Forward through the real stories of survivors. Throughout this season, we will explore how a movement that aimed to build a better nation ended up destroying it. Thank you for listening, and we hope to have you with us again soon. This episode of Kraham Podcast was created and produced by third-year students of the Media and Communications Department. Hosted by Simchan Chariya, Tek Sok Kim as a producer, Sandra Gunner as a narrator, Ngau Pai as a scriptwriter, Yi Suthirot as an audio editor, and Soksray Mai as a researcher. Supervised by Hin Suchita and Nagpag Lekana. Kraham Podcast is the product of a final assignment submitted for the broadcast journalism and podcast production at the Department of Media and Communications of the Royal University of Phnom Penh. Thanks to the ECCC Resource Center for extensive support through the research of the Judicial Archive.